So, hello everyone. Welcome to another indie author interview. Today, I am joined by Elizabeth Skarpnes. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, that is. Skarpness
Perfect.
rhymes with darkness.
Okay, perfect. And she is the author of To The Gallows. And so I'm so excited to chat with you today about your cozy historical fantasy. Yes?
Yeah, so To the Gallows is a cozy cottagecore romantasy. It's about a charming rogue meant to die, the enigmatic cleric who spares him, and their marriage of convenience that saves them both.
Love it. Love it. So let's just
Yeah,
jump right in. So tell me a
perfect.
little bit about when you decided that you wanted to become an author and what your path to publication was.
Yeah, so I've always had a love for writing. I grew up writing little short stories, and I really got my start writing in literary role play, like online on Tumblr. That's where I like started really getting into it, invested. I was like, always like, I want to write a book. But in 2020, we all know what happened, the pandemic, and I'm a nurse. So I lost a lot of myself in the pandemic, like caring for others. And I wound up at the end of 2021, going into 2022, like freshly married. And I was like, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of my profession, which was not like it's my passion. I love it, but it's not what lights my soul on fire. And I was like, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna start writing again. Like that's always something that's joy. And then in 2022, I started a writing community called the Second Cup Writers Cafe, and have gone through a couple of different story ideas from there until finally the idea for To the Gallows like dropped into my brain at the beginning, like February this year, and I wrote it in under 2 months, edited it, and published it in August.
Wow.
So very fast turnaround, not typical, like not how my writing usually goes, but I followed the dopamine and happened to be rewarded.
And I think that's one of the biggest pluses of indie publishing, right? Because
Yeah,
trad, you have to query, you have to find, well, first you have to find an agent, then you have to query, right? Then there's so much time and I mean, everybody who I've interviewed on this podcast is like, I just want to get my story out there. Like, I don't want anybody to tell me how to write it, when to write it. Like, this is what I want to do. So I think
like
that
this,
that's the joy of
yeah.
indie.
Yeah, definitely. And like I'm a Virgo, a little bit of a control freak. So being able to like kind of manage every aspect, like how it's presented, how the cover looks, how the editing goes, how the formatting goes, it definitely just lights my little neurodivergent brain on fire as well.
Mhm. Totally, totally get that one. Um, and so obviously you wrote this in, you said about 2 months. But
Yeah.
it's different than your typical writing. So do you plot, do you pants, do you plans? What do you do when you go out to
So
write a book?
yeah, so my other projects I've worked on, I thought I was a pantser at first because that's always how I kind of wrote when I did role play. And then when I started writing a book, I was like, yeah, I'm totally a pantser. And then I went and made a like fantasy calendar, like based off of the world that my book took place in. And one of my friends was like, I have to hold your hands while I say this. You're not a pantser, my friend. And I was like, yeah, you're right. She's like, you're a Virgo. How did you ever think you were? Like a planner. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So I from there really have kind of embraced the planning aspect. But there is some joy about kind of just following the story. And that's really what happened with To the Gallows. It's more of like an exploration of characters. Like there's plot, yes, but it's more of an exploration of characters than plot. Kind of how do you watch like Studio Ghibli films, anime, anything like that?
Yes,
Like
I've seen Studio Ghibli, yeah.
yeah, like slice of life stuff, how like it kind of just flows together and it's not like, oh, this plot point happens, now we go here. It's more so looking at like taking an introspective look at the characters themselves as the story rather than having external plot. So
And I think
following that was like really fun.
so character driven versus plot driven, which
Yeah,
a unique balance, right? There's still a balance
yeah,
there. I find that I think I really enjoy character driven because like that's like I don't know, there's just something about it, right? That just
yeah,
I mean, I feel like a lot of stuff is kind of plot driven, in
yeah,
these days. But the character driven just I really feel like I get to know the character. And I think sometimes with plot
Exactly.
driven, it's like, okay, they're just like a plot device. Like that's kind of how it feels rather than like
Yeah.
intentional.
Yeah, and I definitely think like I also like got a start writing in fanfic as well. And there's like this beautiful thing about fanfic where you're taking a source material where people already know the characters, know the plot, and you get to dive in more into what makes this character, how do they react in these situations. And I really found that that kind of I guess it's been almost a selling point for my book. Like a lot of people have really loved that. They're like, I feel like from page one, we know the characters, even though we're just meeting them. We see who they are, like at their base level on the surface, and then throughout the story, we dive deeper into those inner motives. So I'm glad that people have enjoyed that because that's also something I enjoy in stories.
Which I think is the most important thing is that you enjoy what you're writing. And I hear a lot of the
Yeah,
time people like, I wrote what I needed and what wasn't
yeah,
there. I love the cozy genre. Like I forget like what like my first like cozy was, but like I wrote a cozy paranormal romance. Like that's what I did
yeah.
because I just loved just like how it felt. And so I love that you wrote cozy. So what do you like about writing like cozy fantasy? Because it is different than high stakes like, epic fantasy. So what do you like most about writing in that like mini genre?
Yeah, so this turning out to be cozy was definitely like a one-time project thing, I think. Like I definitely will return to cozy at some point, but I do love my high epic fantasies. But this one, it just happened to work, and what I loved about it was getting to like sit and steep and stew in those slower moments, getting to look and at the mental health of my characters. My female main character, Lorelai, she's neurodivergent, she's ADHD, has anxiety. My main male character, Eldrick, he deals with depression, PTSD, as well as other characters in the book deal with all these mental health issues, and really getting to like dive into some of the nuance and also getting to like not make it like, oh my gosh, poor me, I have ADHD, things are awful, I'm anxious, things are awful. Like giving a real like look at how it affects a person day to day because I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD, anxiety, depression, and I never feel like in fantasy specifically, I see those things like representative, not as like a negative, but not even a positive, but just in a neutral, like this is what it is light. And I really wanted to like kind of infuse that in there.
Own voices I think are so important, and I mean I
Yeah.
know we use that term like, a lot for different races and ethnicities and things like that, but it's also LGBT, it's also mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that adds another layer. So I really, really appreciate that you put that in there. Um, and so what do you need, Elizabeth, in your writing space to stay focused?
So to stay focused in my writing space, usually I need music of some kind. Either it's got lyrics or it doesn't, or it's one song on repeat until the lyrics start meaning nothing. And then I have two other little things. First one is this visual timer,
Hmm.
um, and it slowly starts going down until ding 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 ding, it's done. Then my favorite little buddy is my toaster, my toast light.
Oh, that's so
Um, I I use it to clock in basically when I start writing. And so when the light is on, I'm writing. And then if I find myself getting distracted, I clock out so that I associate and kind of condition myself really that when I see this light on, I'm working, I'm focusing. And I also have my writing group that I work with. We have like productivity sessions as well. Like we'll get together in like body double in like online spaces. And so we'll all have our cameras on, our microphones off, and we'll be writing and we'll pop in the chat and be like, hey, I need help with this, da 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 da. And we'll kind of bounce back and forth and help like each other. And we'll do like the Pomodoro method writing.
what I think body doubling is just becoming bigger and bigger because
Yeah,
I think people are just discovering like, oh, like that's not just a quirk, like that might
that's
actually
a
be, you know?
that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, I love body doubling, like even for reading. Like I think
Yeah,
that it just like puts you in a space where you're able to kind of I don't know, it just feels for some reason for the ADHD, it just fuels that, that focus.
yeah.
I love it.
I do the same thing. Like I literally I can't get chores done around the house once my husband's
Mm-hmm.
home. He'll be like at work or at school, and I'll be like, "Hi, you're just getting home. I just need you to sit there. You don't even have to do anything. Just be present. Play on your phone, and I'm gonna do the dishes." Like it really helps, and I never like realized that that was a thing. I just thought like, oh, it's a thing people do. I didn't realize it was very specifically a neurodivergent thing until I like graduated college. I was like, oh, the pieces clicked for the late diagnosed ADHD girly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's
yeah,
funny, but at least we figure out what works for us.
exactly.
And so we know we talk, I mean, when we talk about neurodivergence, there are a lot of kind of
Mhm.
barriers and things that can kind of get in our way that we need to just
Yeah,
we do them differently.
yeah.
But what is your kryptonite as a writer? What gets in your way, whether it be practical or mental? It could be
Uh,
block. That's me right now. I'm just like, I have the entire thing plotted. I like went and did it, and I just can't get myself to start. Like I'm just like,
yeah.
I know what I want to do, but I'm just so excited about like getting my edits back for like
Mhm.
this first novel that I wrote that like I can't make myself start the next one yet. Like because I feel like it's not
Yeah,
done. So that's
yeah.
why
I feel like
oh,
yeah. So I feel like for me, like I love plotting, but it definitely sometimes makes it harder for me to write because I'm like I feel like my monkey brain feels like I already wrote this. It's done already. There
mm,
was a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was done. And like my intellectual brain's like, no, you didn't. You have to actually write it now after you have like outline and like your like zero draft done.
mhm,
But my biggest kryptonite is definitely like my perfectionism. I get
mm,
so paralyzed by what I think a story should be. And like I have a very clear vision for it in my mind, and I can take you through like every single thing. But the perfectionism is like paralyzing once I get to the keyboard. And it can be really hard for me to start writing. And once I get into a groove, I like will bang out like words like nobody's business. But the getting there, the getting into the hyperfixation mode that I need to get into to actually get the work done, there's no formula that triggers it, unfortunately. I try to manage it as best I can with like the toast light and meds and tea and whatnot, but it's really just a like game of roulette of like, am I gonna get it done today? Like my next book that I'm working on, called Fall of the Dragon King, it is
I just heard dragon.
a
I'm like,
yeah, yeah. So it is a book I've been working on for 2 years now, and I've had my like first draft done, and I need to go back in because my style has changed now that I've written a book, and the better. Like this book needs work. Um, but my brain's like, you've already done this. There's no point in going back and doing it. And I'm like, that's where you're wrong, brain.
mm,
And it definitely has to do with like the perfectionism of it, of being like, you know, wow, this needs to be perfect, and there's so much work that needs to be done.
mm,
That just makes me go like, nope, can't do it. We're
mhm.
done.
Perfectionism.
Yeah,
I can relate to
perfectionism
that
is a
for
big
sure.
one. Yeah,
Um, okay, so let's move on to actually talking about your book. And you kind of gave your one sentence descriptor right in the beginning. So can you repeat that again for us? So describing To the Gallows in a sentence.
perfect. So, To the Gallows is a cozy romantasy novel that is like Tangled meets The Princess Bride and My Lady Jane about a charming rogue meant to die, the enigmatic cleric who spares him, and their marriage of convenience that saves them both.
Ah,
Um,
you must have
yeah,
practiced that because that's perfect.
thank you. I've actually done two signings so far, so
And you have
it
to
got
really,
ingrained in me really quickly.
and I think that's like, and I know that it's always hard for people to describe a book that they wrote that has like thousands of words in it in one sentence, but that's what you have to do. That's your marketing hook. Like if someone comes up to you and says, "What's your book about?" and it doesn't sound interesting in that one sentence, then they're not going to read it and they're not going to pick it up. They're not
And
going to buy it.
exactly, and especially like trying to weave in like the comp titles and like mine, I definitely use more of like movie and television comp titles, which is
I
like
like
a
a lot
kind of
more.
a no-no that people are like, you shouldn't do that. You should like comp their books. And I'm like, other books capture the vibe, but not as much as like the heart of it as these movies and TV shows do. So I just say, screw convention. We're just going to do what we want because guess what? I'm my own publisher.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, exactly. And so who is your favorite character to write and why?
My favorite character to write is definitely I love writing Eldrick. He's the main male character. I like writing, and I've explained this to a couple of people. I'm like, it's weird, but like most people get it. I like writing how I want to be seen. Like Lorelai, at her basis of basis level, has so many parts of me that like I don't like about myself, as I feel like a lot of main characters do. We put like part or bits of ourselves that we're like, I don't really like this part, or wow, I really like this part, but other people don't. And we kind of like throw them into this fantasy, and we're like, okay, go forth, have fun, play, be merry. But writing Eldrick, it really was kind of self healing to like look at these parts of myself that I really don't like my ADHD, my neurodivergence is something I've really struggled with. I've been through a lot of therapy for my anxiety, panic attacks, and seeing that through someone else's lens and being able to be like, this is how you should have been cared for. It really was like a lot of healing, and he is very much a caring character. Even though a lot of people might be like, oh, the main male character is going to be broody or whatever, he can be like, he's got stuff going on, but at his core, he's a person who cares and is a person who's going to be there for other people in the way I wish people had been there for me sometimes. So it definitely is definitely him because a lot of healing happened when I was
Healing yourself. I love that. I love that description.
yeah.
And so conversely, or maybe in similar ways, who is the most challenging character to write and why?
It would definitely be Lorelai because she's so much like me.
Hmm?
It took a lot of self introspection. Like this book, and its like core is basically just my therapy. But Lorelai was definitely my hardest character, not my least favorite, but my hardest character to write because she's so much like me. Having to really look at like what makes her tick made me go like, oh, is this why I do XYZ? Is this why I'm like ABC? Like I learned a lot about myself while writing, and ultimately, again, very healing, but very difficult to like look in the mirror and say, I see you. Now I'm going to let everyone else in the world see you, even though you really don't want to, but it's what you need to do, and
Hmm.
trying to like understand that within myself.
Totally, totally. Um, and what was your favorite scene or quote? Do you have one?
Oh, I have a lot. I have a lot of favorite scenes. But I think my favorite is in chapter, I think it's 13, 12, 12 or 13. And spoiler if no one's read the book, but it's a scene where Lorelai is like having a panic attack and Eldrick is talking her down and calming her down. And he like basically like sits with her and is like, take a deep breath. With every, oh gosh, I always like get the lines wrong even though I wrote them. Hold on. Um, the curse of being an author is you're like,
Exactly.
what did I actually write? Do I remember writing it? But basically, the whole part of the scene is that Lorelai has like pushed herself to the point of exhaustion, has given so much of herself, and is like having a mental breakdown over it. And he's just like, I care, like breathe, and like he sits with her, puts her hand on his chest, and it's just like, with every breath, you're safe. With every heartbeat, you're strong. With every moment, you're alive. And it becomes like this mantra that she takes and uses, and it helps strengthen herself as she reminds herself, yes, I am safe. Yes, I am strong. Yes, I am loved. I'm loved by others. I'm loved by myself. And eventually, spoiler alert, these two idiots fall in love and kiss, but I'm loved by Eldrick as well. And it's just really powerful. And when I wrote it, um, it it made me cry. I sat there and I cried for a little while. I was like, "Oh God, did I do this? Did I just hurt myself in confusion?"
And I think like I ask like a lot of like those lines that like are like really powerful and moving. I'm just like how do you even feel about writing that? Like that's like, I mean, I think writing is art, and I think that there's just some authors who can just like weave words in a way that just I don't even know like how to describe it. There's like not even a word for it. But like do you ever like have to sit back and be like, wow, like I wrote that. Like that's like
Yes,
yeah.
all the time. I
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I was just possessed by this character, and these words like vomited out of my fingertips into the book, and then I like come back to myself and I'm like, whoa, I I wrote that?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously? Like, yay, like kudos to me. But where did that even come
Mm,
and that was definitely one of those lines because it comes up later in the book. And later in the book is actually where I wrote it first. And I was like, I knew exactly where it needed to go for the first time. And then I started weaving that theme in throughout the book. And like when I wrote it for the first time, I just like literally sat back and I was just sitting, I was like just silently crying to myself at like 3 a.m, going like, what did I just write?
mm-hmm.
Like that is so it's so healing. It's I think the theme of the book is probably healing, but it's so healing to be able to like write that and be like, wow, I wish someone had told me this. I wish I could tell myself this and realize it. And now that I'm writing it, I am telling myself and realizing it. It's like my brain, my subconscious has something it needed me to hear, and it like put it front and center, slap in front of my face in the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally, totally. And so the last question of this section is kind of fun. I know that you just revealed some art, so um, why don't we talk about who inspired you to describe your characters in that way? Whether is there like an actual like actor actress model that's out there that you kind of use as reference, or was it just the description of this is what I want them to look like?
So it's kind of just a description of like this is what I want it to look like. Lorelai definitely I feel like this happens with a lot of authors, and I feel like a lot of people demonize it, like self-inserting. Like she's not really a full self-insert, but there are pieces, and like appearance is one of them. It's easy for me to describe what I look like in a few sentences and to like get that down. And so while we're not exactly the same, there are similarities. Like the bangs is one of them, like the fringe. Um, and but there's no real model. Like I didn't send a picture of myself. I sent like a general description to my artist and like, hey, this is what they look like. I give kind of a few like aesthetic stock photos or Pinterest posts. I like send them place like I actually have a huge document that I send, like a huge art briefing I send, but there's no specific model for any of the characters. But Lorelai is definitely like white Caucasian. Eldrick is he is if we were doing real world equivalents, he is like Hispanic and he's mixed. He's Hispanic and white, but like Southern Appalachian style. If you read the book, you kind of really pick that up when they go to visit his hometown. That's kind of like what the culture is like.
Hmm.
But no specific like, oh, this person is this character. Although if I had to pick someone who is probably closest to Eldrick, I would say Tyler Posey. Like yes, from Teen
Of
Wolf.
Tyler Posey. Wow. Okay. Okay. And I
If I
always
had to pick someone who's closest.
and I asked that question, um, because I like to like I like to go back after I interview and read the book again because I like to like kind of like have that in my head about like who or like what sort of, you know, what sort of descriptions there are. So that's why I asked that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the last part of the interview. So just some fun questions, things that I would want to know if I was getting to know somebody. So in your free time, other than reading and writing, what do you like to do for fun?
Other than reading and writing, for fun, I like to play with my cats. I have 3 cats. I have 2 little kittens that I got for my birthday slash my book launch gift to myself and my husband. And then I have an older cat. Other things I like to do is I like to go for walks. I have a lot of like trails out here where I'm at. I like to just go out on walks, be in nature, touch grass. And I also like to go do bar. I've been trying to work on like taking care of myself, and it's become more of like a me time rather than just like, oh, I'm working out. It really has become like me time. It has actually really become something I enjoy.
Cool,
And
cool.
then other things I do is I work on developmental editing for other authors. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Some nice things that you have to do and for self-care because we know how important that is.
Yes.
This is my favorite question of the whole interview are who are some books or authors that you would recommend? I have my Goodreads out.
Okay, ready to type.
Yeah.
My number one recommendation is I have a lot. A lot of them are authors I've worked with, but I've worked with them because I love them so much. And I have most of the books I've worked with here. My number one, if I had to say, if you pick up one author from hearing about me, this is going to be Catherine M. Sweet. It is Katharine M. Sweet, as in like sweets. She writes contemporary rom-coms that are rated R home books. So these two books specifically have my whole heart. Specifically, Love Stories Are. Um, the book, it's a duet. The first book, the kind of synopsis is, have you heard the one about the small town girl who got knocked up by the ex-wife of an ex-con that she'd never met? No, you should. It's a pretty good one. Think like Jane the Virgin um, vibes with ex-convicts. And it's really fun. And the second book in the duet is about his brother writing this book. So
That's
it's kind of, it's really cool. And you can read them separately. You can read one, not read the other. You can read the second book in the duet, Love Stories Are, without having read the first one. But I love these books with my whole heart. And I love Catherine. She's the absolute sweetest. Um, Other books I would recommend, I would definitely, for my high fantasy girlies, recommend the Fate of Vengeance series by J.D. Ronan.
yes.
Um,
Love
have you
it.
read them? I
Yeah, I read
love
I,
Ronan. My absolute
honestly,
favorite.
the first vow, right? Was that
A Deadly Vow.
yeah, the prequel.
The prequel. Is
Yes.
there a prequel?
Yes.
Did I not know there was a prequel released?
There is a prequel. Let me look. Because I 100% I read it. The first loss?
Oh, that is not J.D. Ronan.
That was JD Ronan.
Um, you're thinking of J.D. Linton
Yes.
with
Okay.
The Last
That was
Storm, Rogue
close.
and Ara.
Yes, yes.
You were close.
At least I had the first part, but
Uh,
I have read A Deadly Vow. And I've rated them
yeah,
4 stars. Book one and
yeah.
two.
JD, I was like JD Ronan and JD Linton very close, so I
Okay.
understand that. I was like, wait, so I worked as a dev editor and alpha reader on both of these books. So I was like, did she do a prequel that I didn't know about? I feel really bad. It's
I
so,
scared
but
the crap out of you.
yes, I had a little heart attack, Jada. I love you if you're out there listening. But A Deadly Vow and A Burning Throne are amazing. Book 3 is in the works and coming out soon.
Yep.
Love these books a lot. It's so poetic, and you can also listen to them on audio.
Yes.
Um, but if I had to pick two, those would be my top two for you to
I
take
am
away. I'll
I
stop
appreciate
yapping because I could yap forever.
me too. Me too. I appreciate it. Okay. So let me see here. All right, so let's it's just about 10 minutes left, so we should be okay. So the next question is if you had to give writing advice to a younger you or an inspiring author such as myself, what would that advice be?
It would be find community. Writing can be so solitary and so lonely, and finding community that you can not only be like, oh, look at my work and give me feedback, but people you can actually become friends with, and you talk about day-to-day life things. And but they also get this writing side of you that not a lot of other people are going to get it because they're not in it. Um, I am very lucky that I found my community and created a community space for other people to come join very early on in my like actual trying to write a book process. And I think if I hadn't, I would not be where I'm at. I think I would have given up. So that would definitely be my top priority for anyone willing to start writing. Find your community and then write the damn thing because that's the hardest part.
Hmm.
And also write in Comic Sans. It increases your word count.
I didn't know
Uh,
that.
yeah, there's been studies done because it's a very neurodivergent friendly font, specifically for people who have dyslexia, because every character is different. But it ultimately increases your word count, helps you write faster, and it makes it easier to not go back and read
This is great advice for me. Now I know.
That's my other one. I hated Comic Sans. And then I got the tip from one of my writer friends, Catherine, actually. She's like, you need to stop going back and like fixing your things. Change it to Comic Sans and go try it. You're going to increase your word count times 2 to 3. And I was like, no way that's going to work. And then it did. And I was really mad. And now I'm a Comic Sans stan.
I
So
love that. I'm gonna try
yeah,
it. I'm gonna try it. It's worth it.
give it a try. It's worth it. What's it worst it's going to do is look silly for a little bit and you change it back.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And then, so you did mention listening to music while you write. So, or just like the same song on repeat. So, what makes you listen with words versus not with words? Is it just like the vibes of the song, or like where do you make that determination?
Kind of the vibes of what I'm writing. If I'm really struggling with like the words I'm writing, I'm listening to something without music because the words distract me. Also depends on my attention span for the day. Um, but also if I'm like in a flow state, like writing, it doesn't matter if the song has words or not. A lot of times it's just about the vibes, and music is a really big inspiration for me. In the back of To The Gallows and on the reading guide that you can find in the QR code to the back, there are 5 separate playlists for this book because of all the inspiration I've gathered from it. I have one that is straight instrumentals for vibes only, one that is um, a curated playlist, one that's just pure chaos, but all these songs fit like the vibe of the book. And then I have Taylor's version. I have a completely Taylor Swift version of a playlist, and then I have an annotated playlist where I actually make kind of my own radio show, go through the curated playlist, and in between each song, kind of talk about why I chose the song, how it reflects parts of the book, and have like this like kind of fun little transition between. It's like an hour long, but it's really fun to
That's
listen
really
to,
cool. I'm
unbiased.
definitely gonna have
Yeah,
to go listen to it.
yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah.
And then the final question is, are there any events that you have coming up that we can look forward to meeting you at?
Yes, so I have a book signing with Bougie Bookstore up in Massachusetts, Norwood, Massachusetts. And then I'm also doing their book club in March. So I'm going to be their romantic book club pick. People are going to read my book and talk to me about it. I'm going to go show up and hang out with them and answer questions. And then I have a couple of events coming up with the Fantasy Author Legion that we haven't really announced yet that I'm super excited for. But I'm really excited to be doing more events. I've really found that I love, which is strange for an introvert to love going somewhere where she's forced to talk to people, but it's about something I enjoy, and the hyperfixation takes over, and so it's okay. They've hemmed us out.
And I thank you so much for being a part of the Fantasy Author Legion. I mean, we met at the Bougie Bookstore event.
Yeah,
And I think it's like you said, find community. And I feel like that is just a great community. So if anybody out there is an indie author that lives either in the Northeast or in the Midwest, please follow us on Instagram, the Fantasy Author Legion. That's just the tag. Reach out to us and we can kind of add you to our Discord. Because I think it's just a great group of people. Like we've had like advice like on just like a lot of self-publishing stuff and then like covers and so many different things that everybody who either has been doing it longer or in different ways they can share their kind of points of view, and we organize events for you so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to say I'll be there and you're in. So I think that that's great about it. But I'm really glad that we got to meet each other through Bougie Bookstore in Norwood, which honestly I wish
I
that I
love
lived there
them.
because it
Absolutely love
is
bookstore.
an amazing bookstore with amazing ladies who run it. It's a woman-owned
Yep.
bookstore. It's absolutely amazing. I don't even, there's not even like amazing isn't even the word to describe it. Like Cassie and Jamie are
It's
amazing people.
inspiring is I
Yeah,
think the word I would use.
inspiring
It's
is a good word.
very inspiring. Like they are putting in the work and making it work. And they have 2 locations now. They
They do.
have one, yeah, they have the one in Norwood and then the other one, Foxborough?
Foxborough.
Foxborough? Yeah, yeah, in Foxborough. I should remember that. I went and saw Taylor Swift. But in Foxborough, and both are just the cutest little stores.
They
And
are.
they're pink, and there's such girlhood and camaraderie surrounding the whole vibes. And I just, Jamie, everyone else, if you're listening, love you. Big time.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're getting a book club and, you know, having done the event. Um, it's just, it's great that they kind of like reach out, you know, and kind of say, hey, like, come do this book club with us, which is just amazing because I think book clubs,
Yes.
I love my book club. I started it with some Instagram friends that I met, that live in the state, and it's so awesome to like come together and like talk about a book. Like, we even had like when we did our August book club, we had it at Hawk Ridge, which is a winery here in Connecticut where we had an event the same day. And so we were talking about books, or at least I think it was like one or two of books that the authors were there. So then like the members could go and then like buy the book, talk to the author. Like it was really cool. I really like that idea.
Super,
Well,
super excited.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for
Oh,
taking time to join me
thanks
today.
for having me.
I know you're so busy, but you know, thank you for what you do as well. I don't think that we give healthcare workers enough thanks. My sister-in-law is a nurse as well. And I'm a therapist, so you know, we definitely need as many of us as we can get. But I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for listening, everyone.